Hey guys, today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. Individuals referred to as psychopaths often exhibit antisocial personality disorders, making them incapable of feeling remorse, guilt, empathy, or compassion. Despite this, they can convincingly mimic human emotions and generally appear outwardly normal. Psychopaths are unprincipled, using those around them for personal gain, but they are typically patient in waiting for the perfect victim. Protecting oneself from their calculated manipulations is nearly impossible. They play mind games, deceive, lure individuals into their trap, and completely dominate their will before delivering a devastating blow. The case of a young woman named Jennifer Zacconi in 2006 shook Italy to its core, becoming one of the most horrifying and shocking cases in the country's criminal history. Jennifer Zacconi was born on February 19, 1984, in a small Italian town called Martellago, located in the province of Venice. She was the only child of a modest family, her mother a homemaker and her father a factory worker. Her parents adored her and raised her in a warm and trusting environment, filled with love. Jennifer grew up as a cheerful, outgoing, and sociable girl. She always had many friends and could effortlessly become the life of any gathering. However, in the provincial town where Jennifer was born and raised, there were few places where young people could spend their time constructively. Most of the local youth typically gathered at one of the town's small bars, or its only nightclub. One of the most popular venues in town was a bar in the city center, where Jennifer and her friends often hung out. It was there, in 2003, that she met the owner, Lucio, who also worked as the bartender. Despite being almost 13 years older than Jennifer, Lucio took an immediate interest in her and began showing her attention. Their casual interactions quickly developed into something more. Jennifer was flattered that an older man seemed to be so taken with her. Lucio showered her with compliments, treated her to cocktails, gave her rides home in his car, and even surprised her with expensive gifts. Jennifer confided to her friends that she hadn't initially liked Lucio, but his strong charisma eventually won her over. A few months later, they officially began dating. Their relationship developed rapidly, but it was far from simple. Lucio was married and had 2 young children, something he admitted to Jennifer early on. However, he lied about his marriage, claiming it was an unhappy union. He said he no longer loved his wife, but couldn't leave her yet because of his children. Lucio frequently complained to Jennifer about how unbearable his home life was, saying he only felt peace and happiness when he was with her, while his home life was, in his words, a nightmare. Jennifer not only believed him, but also sympathized with his struggles. She listened to his stories attentively and even began to resent his wife, whom Lucio described as cruel, selfish, greedy, and dishonest. He insisted that his wife was only with him for his money and told Jennifer that he pitied his children, who would be emotionally devastated if their parents divorced. Lucio assured Jennifer that he would soon talk to his wife, settle everything, and separate, clearing the path for their happiness together. He was so convincing that Jennifer even introduced him to her parents, and he became a welcomed guest in the Zacconi household, where he was treated almost like a member of the family. Jennifer confided in her mother about the complicated situation and Lucio's supposedly unhappy marriage. Her mother, understandably concerned, was initially displeased, but Jennifer managed to convince her of Lucio's sincerity and intentions. Jennifer always seemed overjoyed when she was with him or even speaking about him, which led her mother to reluctantly accept her daughter's choice, trusting that Lucio would eventually marry her. The couple's relationship lasted about a year and a half, during which Lucio repeatedly promised Jennifer that he was on the verge of divorcing his wife to be with her. While he continued to complain about his marriage, in reality, he had no intention of leaving his family. Lucio enjoyed his double life. Keeping Jennifer close fed his ego, added excitement to his daily routine, and made him feel special. In September 2005, Jennifer unexpectedly discovered she was pregnant. Instead of feeling scared, she saw this as a sign, perhaps even fate. She believed that the pregnancy would prompt Lucio to take decisive action, tell his wife the truth, finalize a divorce, and marry her as they had been planning. However, the reality turned out to be far different. On September 30th, during one of their usual meetings in a hotel room, Jennifer told Lucio she was expecting a child. There was no doubt about who the father was. Jennifer had been exclusively with Lucio for the past year and a half, and he knew this as well. Accusing her of infidelity wasn't an option. Lucio's reaction was immediate. His expression changed, and he went silent before demanding that Jennifer terminate the pregnancy as soon as possible. Jennifer couldn't believe what she was hearing. At first, she thought he must be joking, but when she cautiously asked him to clarify, Lucio erupted. He grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her violently, shouting at her to fix this problem immediately. Jennifer was terrified. She had never seen Lucio act this way before. It seemed as though he was barely restraining himself from hitting her, and in truth, that's exactly what he was struggling to hold back. He paced the room in a frenzy, repeatedly asking her who else knew about the pregnancy. That day, they were unable to have a calm conversation. After a heated argument, they parted ways, each heading home. Jennifer wasn't overly upset by Lucio's reaction. Naively, she believed he just needed some time to process and come to terms with the situation before making the right decision. She chose not to pressure him and refrained from calling him in the days following their tense meeting. However, unable to hold back any longer, she eventually called him first. Lucio, on the other hand, was convinced that Jennifer had used the time to terminate the pregnancy and that their relationship would continue as it had before. His first question was about whether she had taken care of it, and when she told him she hadn't, he erupted. He began yelling over the phone, accusing her of trying to ruin his life. Once again, they couldn't have a calm conversation. Jennifer, realizing he hadn't changed his stance, firmly decided on her own that she would have the baby, with or without his support. Time passed, and the two saw each other less and less. Their communication was sporadic and usually ended in heated arguments. Meanwhile, Lucio's wife remained unaware of her husband's affair or the fact that Jennifer was pregnant. Lucio continued to present himself as a devoted family man, doing everything he could to conceal his infidelity while simultaneously pressuring Jennifer to terminate the pregnancy. Jennifer's parents supported her decision to keep the baby, reassuring her that they would help raise the child, even if the father never came around. Deep down, however, they hoped Lucio would eventually take responsibility, acknowledge the child, and marry Jennifer as he had promised. For several months, Lucio avoided any contact with his pregnant lover. During this time, Jennifer had come to terms with the idea of becoming a single mother. She tried to stay positive and actively prepared for the baby's arrival. She already knew she was expecting a boy and had even chosen a name for him, Haven. By the spring of 2006, the Zacconi household was fully prepared for the baby's arrival. With her parents' help, Jennifer had set up a nursery, complete with a crib, stroller, blankets, and baby clothes. She had even sent Lucio ultrasound photos of their baby along with a few messages, but he never responded. Despite his silence, Jennifer tried not to push him. She hoped to give him the space he needed to come around and believed that he would eventually choose her and their son. She checked her phone and email daily, waiting for a message or call from him. Then, at the end of April 2006, an unexpected phone call finally came. It was Lucio. He asked how she was doing and mentioned that they needed to meet for an important conversation. His tone was calm, and his voice was soft and gentle, something Jennifer hadn't heard from him in months. For the first time since telling him about the pregnancy, Lucio sounded kind and sincere. He gave the impression that he truly wanted to discuss something important with her. Jennifer's heart leapt with hope. She thought Lucio had finally chosen her and their unborn son, decided to leave his unhappy marriage, and was planning to propose to her during their meeting. She shared her thoughts with her mother, who agreed with her optimism. Jennifer's mother saw Lucio as a mature, responsible man who would be an ideal husband and father, and despite everything that had happened, she would have gladly welcomed him into their family. Lucio arranged to meet Jennifer on the evening of April 29th, suggesting they take a walk in a nearby park. It seemed odd that he didn't suggest a cafe or a hotel, as he had in the past, but Jennifer didn't think much of it. She was simply eager to see him again. At that point, her due date was less than a week away, and she still hoped her child would have a father. The evening before their meeting, Lucio called Jennifer again to confirm the details. He told her he would wait for her in the parking lot of a small shop about half a kilometer from her home. The area became nearly deserted in the evenings, but this didn't raise any alarms for Jennifer. She felt no sense of danger. Jennifer carefully prepared for the meeting. She dressed up, styled her hair, and did her makeup, wanting to look her best for Lucio. She spent nearly an hour in front of the mirror, carefully choosing a dress to wear. She took a small purse containing her phone, a pack of mints, and just 10 euros in cash. She walked to the parking lot and waited there alone for Lucio. He arrived around 8 p.m. in a car Jennifer had never seen before. However, she didn't think much of it, assuming he had purchased a new vehicle during the time they hadn't been in touch. Lucio suggested they go get ice cream at a nearby gas station, and Jennifer, unsuspecting, got into his car without hesitation. 2 hours later, Jennifer's mother began to worry and decided to call her daughter. To her dismay, Jennifer's phone was turned off. Her anxiety grew, and by midnight she didn't know what to do. Suddenly the phone rang, but it wasn't Jennifer, it was Lucio. Lucio calmly asked if Jennifer had made it home yet. He claimed they had met, talked, taken a walk in the park, and that he had dropped her off at the same parking lot where he had picked her up. When Jennifer's mother told him that she hadn't returned home, Lucio feigned concern and panic. He said he would call back later but couldn't search for her right away because he had urgent matters to attend to. After this, he hung up and never called back. Terrified, Jennifer's parents began calling all her friends, hoping she had run into someone and lost track of time. Unfortunately, none of them had seen her that evening or had any idea where she might be. Then around 1 a.m., they received a text message from Jennifer's phone. The message stated that she had gone with friends to a casino in Slovenia, a place she had visited before. It reassured them not to worry and promised she would return home in a day. Jennifer's mother immediately tried calling her, but the phone was already turned off. That was when she realized that someone else must have sent the message. Despite the casino being only about a 2-hour drive from their town near the Italian border, Jennifer couldn't have gotten there. She hadn't brought any money, and more importantly, she didn't have her passport, which was necessary to cross into Slovenia. Her parents began to fear the worst, that their daughter had been abducted, and Lucio might have had something to do with it. But why? And where was Jennifer? They wasted no time reporting her disappearance to the police. Since she was heavily pregnant and due to give birth in just a few days, the authorities launched an immediate investigation, starting with checks for any accidents or emergencies reported in the area. Jennifer's mother told the police everything about Lucio's suspicious behavior. As the father of her child and the last person to see her, he became their primary person of interest. Lucio was summoned for questioning and repeated his earlier claim. He had spoken with Jennifer, then dropped her off at the parking lot near the store. Since there were no surveillance cameras at the location, his story couldn't be verified. With no physical evidence linking him to her disappearance, the authorities had to release him, but placed him under discreet surveillance. On April 30th, Jennifer's parents made a public appeal on television, asking anyone with information about their daughter's disappearance to come forward. Unfortunately, no valuable leads emerged. The police decided to question Lucio again. This time, he maintained he had nothing to do with Jennifer's disappearance. He admitted to their relationship and expressed concern for her well-being, but his demeanor was unsettlingly calm and indifferent. Lucio even offered a theory, suggesting that Jennifer might have been kidnapped by a group of individuals. He specifically mentioned Roma communities, who could have taken her to sell her baby. Though Lucio appeared to cooperate with the investigation, he did so reluctantly. Without direct evidence, the police were unable to detain him. Then, a week later, Lucio disappeared. By this time, his wife had learned about his affair with the young, pregnant woman and his suspected involvement in her disappearance. The revelation shocked her. She had believed Lucio to be a devoted family man. Feeling betrayed and desperate to protect her own family, she filed for divorce and sought full custody of their 2 children. As their marriage fell apart, Lucio made his escape, seemingly determined to go into hiding and avoid further scrutiny. On May 11th, Lucio unexpectedly decided to contact his wife, placing a call to her. Unbeknownst to him, his phone was being monitored by authorities who tracked his location to Milan. Lucio was arrested that same day and transported to the Martellago police station. He continued to deny any involvement in Jennifer's disappearance, claiming that he loved her and was even ready to leave his family for her. However, his story began to change. This time, he alleged that Jennifer never showed up for their meeting that evening. Unfortunately for him, the recorded phone conversation with Jennifer's mother contradicted his new account. Meanwhile, investigators analyzed data from Jennifer's mobile phone and discovered that its last known signal had been detected near a gas station roughly 1 mile from her home. Luckily, the station was equipped with an outdoor surveillance camera, and detectives decided to review the footage. The quality of the video left much to be desired, but the parking lot was nearly empty around 9:30 p.m. on April 29th. A car pulled into the lot, and while it was difficult to make out exact details, the investigators had little doubt about who was inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a woman suddenly bolted from the car and started running away, clearly terrified. The driver exited the vehicle and chased after her. The woman stumbled multiple times, struggling to move, likely due to her advanced pregnancy. The man quickly caught up to her, struck her several times, and then dragged her by the hair toward an area off-camera. Detectives immediately combed the area around the gas station. In the bushes nearby, they found a torn piece of fabric with reddish-brown stains. The fragment was sent to a lab for analysis, and it was soon confirmed that the stains were blood and matched Jennifer's DNA. One critical challenge remained. The car in the video did not belong to Lucio. Without being able to directly tie him to the events shown on the footage, building a case against him was difficult. However, investigators managed to decipher the car's license plate number and issued a search alert for the vehicle. The car was traced to a rental company, and records showed that on April 29th, the vehicle had been rented by none other than Lucio Niero. When confronted with all the evidence and the inconsistencies in his story, Lucio realized there was no point in denying the charges any longer. He agreed to cooperate with the investigation, hoping to receive a lighter sentence. The primary question investigators needed answered was the location of Jennifer's body, as by then, there was no doubt she was no longer alive. Lucio confessed that Jennifer had been nothing more than a source of entertainment for him, and he had never intended to leave his wife. He admitted to lying to Jennifer, stringing her along with empty promises. When she became pregnant, it was a shock to him, but he believed he could convince or pressure her to terminate the pregnancy. However, Jennifer refused, putting his marriage and financial stability at risk. For 9 months, Lucio waited and hoped Jennifer would change her mind, but she never did. If she gave birth, he knew the truth would eventually come out, potentially leading to a divorce that would cost him half his business and require him to pay significant child support. To protect his marriage and reputation, Lucio went to great lengths to keep his wife in the dark. But he knew that once the baby was born, the situation would become impossible to hide. Lucio arranged a meeting with Jennifer, and she happily agreed. According to him, he still hoped to convince her to end the pregnancy, seemingly ignoring the fact that she was just days away from giving birth. Their conversation quickly escalated into an argument, and they began shouting at each other. He drove to the gas station, believing it was a secluded spot with no cameras or witnesses where they could continue the discussion. During the argument, Jennifer allegedly threatened to tell his wife everything, which Lucio claimed drove him into a rage. He said he struck her several times in the face to silence her, but Jennifer then threatened to report him to the police. She got out of the car and tried to run, but her advanced pregnancy made it difficult for her to move quickly, and she stumbled and fell multiple times. Lucio caught up to her and, in a fit of anger, began hitting her. Then, he dragged her by her hair into a wooded area near the road. Lucio claimed he had no intention of killing Jennifer, but was overcome with rage and lost control. He grabbed a piece of rope lying on the ground and used it to strangle her. However, the rope was old and rotted, breaking in his hands. By the time he realized what had happened, Jennifer was already unresponsive. Panicking, he decided to get rid of her body. He dragged her farther away from the road until he came across a deep trench. Recent rains had turned the ground at the bottom into soft, wet mud. Lucio decided it was the perfect place to hide her body. He threw Jennifer face down into the trench, then climbed in after her and began stomping on her to push her deeper into the muddy ground. He walked back and forth over her body, even jumping on it to press it further into the muck. Afterward, he shoveled some dirt over her but didn't bother to properly bury her, leaving the scene in a rush. The suspect led authorities to the site where he had hidden Jennifer's body. Investigators noted that the location was disturbingly well chosen for such a crime. Just a week earlier, construction workers had filled in the trench, making it highly unlikely that anyone would have found Jennifer's remains without Lucio's confession. Excavating the site and recovering the remains required significant effort. When the remains were sent for forensic examination, the results were shocking. Despite the decomposition, medical examiners identified numerous injuries sustained while Jennifer was alive, including bruises, abrasions, and scratches. Ligature marks on her neck indicated strangulation with a rope, but that was not what caused her death. Jennifer had lost consciousness during the assault, and Lucio had thrown her into the trench while she was still alive. Jennifer tried to breathe, which was evidenced by soil and mud found deep in her airways, ultimately causing her death. Furthermore, as Lucio stomped on her body to push it deeper into the mud, he fractured her spine, collarbone, arm, and several ribs. Experts concluded that both Jennifer and her unborn son could have survived if Lucio had stopped and called for help. Despite her injuries, her life, and that of her child, might have been saved. After confessing, Lucio claimed he had acted in a fit of rage, insisting he was temporarily out of his mind. He requested a psychological evaluation, but the results determined that he was fully aware of his actions at the time of the crime. However, experts did note signs of psychopathic tendencies. Prosecutors argued that Lucio's actions were premeditated. They believed he was motivated by the financial fallout he would face if his affair and Jennifer's pregnancy became public knowledge, leading to a scandalous divorce. There was no doubt that he committed the crime deliberately, and his primary motive was to protect his wealth. Although the case gained significant public attention, media outlets did not report that Jennifer had been pregnant. This omission angered the Zacconi family, who decided to take matters into their own hands. They gave a detailed interview about Jennifer's pregnancy and shared post-mortem photographs of her and her unborn son in a small casket. Lucio's trial didn't begin until 2008, 2 years after the crime. Throughout the proceedings, the defense continued to argue that the crime was not premeditated and that Lucio had acted in a state of emotional distress. Astonishingly, despite the psychiatric evaluation affirming Lucio's mental competence, the judge ruled that the crime was not intentional. In October 2008, Lucio Niero was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after just 15 years. This lenient sentence outraged Jennifer's family, but their attempts to appeal the case and seek a harsher penalty were unsuccessful. Lucio was also ordered to pay the Zacconi family 80,000 euros in compensation, but he declared bankruptcy and never paid them a single cent. By 2016, Lucio was granted privileges for good behavior, allowing him to leave the prison during the day to work in the city and spend several weeks a year at home. In 2017, he was released on parole after serving only 11 years for the brutal double crime. Lucio never expressed remorse for his actions and never apologized to Jennifer's parents for taking away their daughter and their unborn grandchild. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.